while Irv Smith Jr. learns the offense and learns the NFL game, and then go from there. But this thing could go anywhere, any direction at this point, I think.
You mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. He showed up at camp. How about that? Somebody actually reporting to work.
Yeah, definitely. And well, it's better than Le'Veon Bell has done.
Yes.
So I guess
he's ahead of that game.
Yeah, ahead of that game a little bit. But Odell Beckham Jr. had not been seen in Cleveland since the day he came for his press conference. And so he had basically no-showed the strength and conditioning portion of the off-season program. And he had missed a voluntary mini camp. And so now he's here for OTAs in Cleveland, and people are getting excited, like, "Hey, yeah, he's here and he's come to work and great." But to me, he should have been there from day one. This is a guy coming to a new team. He has had injury issues in the past, and he claims he's been working out, but I guarantee he hasn't been working out as hard as the Browns' strength and conditioning coach was going to work him. Some players do on their own, can do that, but I have my doubts that OBJ was doing that out in L.A. or New York or wherever he was hanging out, and I think it's still the diva mentality that he's got, that I'm a star, I'll show up when I want to show up, and it sends a bad message, and it was the same thing that Le'Veon Bell has done by not showing up at the Jets off-season program, and I think these guys just do a disservice to their team, to the team that basically put their faith in them and have invested in them with significant money. They're basically the highest paid players on the team. And I think with that comes a little bit of leadership responsibility and getting in there, and they're going to have to learn a new offense and get in sync with a new quarterback. And yeah, you can do that in training camp, and yeah, you can do that, but it's not going to happen in a preseason game because they're not going to play a lot. And so to me, these are important times of the year. Even though a lot of it is just mental work and walkthroughs and things like that, they're not hitting. And furthermore, the off-season program and the OTs are so easy now compared to the old days. And we've talked about this before. It's no big deal. I just think you're talking about a guy in OBJ who is still thinking celebrity and still thinking, I want to hang out in L.A., I want to be in New York. And it wasn't his choice to be traded to Cleveland. And I'm sure that wasn't high on his list in the first place. He said the right things after the trade, of course, but even still, I'm not sure how committed he is to that team and that franchise. And I just have a feeling it's not going to end well for OBJ in Cleveland.
And let's talk about roster construction here quickly, and then we're going to wrap up. Thanks to WhiteBearLakeSuperstore.com. And again, if anybody else wants to sponsor this program or the TalkNorth.com network, you can reach us at talknorthpodcast@gmail.com. You look at Super Bowl winners, and I know that's not the only way to evaluate, but it's a quick way to evaluate. Patriots, Eagles, Patriots, Broncos, Patriots, Seahawks, Ravens, Giants, Packers, Saints, Steelers, Giants. I would argue you'd have to go back to 2007 to see a team that won the Super Bowl because they had spectacular receiver. I can't even say that because that game, if you remember that Colts-Bears game, basically Manning dumped the ball off most of the time. There was a busted coverage, so Reggie Wayne had a long touchdown catch, but it wasn't like a great play. It was just a busted coverage. Really, they moved the ball by throwing to the running backs in that game. It's been a long time since a great wide receiver was the reason his team won the Super Bowl. So while everybody wants to have great wide receivers, it's not like it's the key to winning. And people like Beckham and Brown should realize that, even though, as I say that, I realize that they will not realize that.
Yeah, I think you make a very valid point. And you think back to some of the for example, the 49ers with Jerry Rice, John Taylor, those years.
That was a different era. Jerry Rice did win Super Bowls.
Yeah, he did. And, of course, Joe Montana had a lot to do with it, too, and Michael Irvin in Dallas. And there were some all-time great receivers that had a big impact. But, yeah, the Patriots have not had game-breaking receivers other than Randy Moss for a couple of years. And Troy Brown was a very good player, but those guys were not game-breakers necessarily. And I think some of those Steeler teams had some really top receiver cores. When you think about Santonio Holmes, I think won an MVP that year, even though I thought Roethlisberger should have won it.
And he had a good game, but he's not like a Jerry Rice figure.
No, exactly. And Hines Ward was a great player in Pittsburgh, and Plexico Burress. was a great player in Pittsburgh. So they had some top guys, and Plexico caught the winning touchdown for the Giants over the Patriots. But again, that was after he'd left Pittsburgh. So I think the point is valid that these receivers that some of these teams are trading for, investing big dollars in, and hoping they're going to carry the weight of the team and put them over the top. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think it's really still a quarterback-driven league, and so I think that's really the most important thing that has to happen. But yeah, it's interesting to see what happens here, and as we said, with Beckham, Antonio Brown, how these things are all going to play out. I'm not so sure they're going to end so well.
One last roster question for the Vikings. They have Laquan Treadwell playing on probably his last year in a Vikings uniform unless something strange happens. You have Chad Beebe, who's kind of a nice little change of pace receiver. You now have 2 tight ends, and we're not 100% sure one of them is going to be there. What's optimal for that extra receiver position, whether it's a second tight end or a third receiver? What's optimal for this franchise right now?
Well, I think it's the versatility that they want. They want to be able to be multiple. They want to be able to go to different looks at different times and try to create mismatches out there. And so it's not one or the other necessarily. If they had that, if Treadwell had been a dynamic third receiver, or if they get that kind of production out of a BB or a Zylstra or one of these new draft picks, then so be it. Especially if it ends up that Rudolph is not here, that he does get traded, and then it's Irv Smith Jr. and David Morgan and Ty Conklin that are carrying the load at tight end, and those guys are all quality players too. And so it's going to be really interesting. I just think they want to be very multiple, very versatile, change it up out there. Yeah, they want to do some 2 tight end. They want to do some 3 tight end stuff. They want to do some 2 and 3 wide receiver stuff. Maybe go 4 wide sometimes. And empty backfield. Even though I've never been a big fan of the empty backfield, but I think that's what they're looking for is that versatility. And we know that Kubiak and Stefanski both like having 2 tight ends out there. And I think that's why they're going to do whatever they can to keep Kyle Rudolph here if they possibly can this year.
Go to whitebearlakesuperstore.com in person. Go to White Bear. Oh, I guess I messed that up, Jeff. Go to whitebearlakesuperstore.com, and when you chat with someone, tell them we sent you. Go there in person and tell whoever you deal with that we sent you. We do appreciate their sponsorship. We want their business to thrive. Thanks to everybody who supports this network. Thanks to Jeff. We'll be back next week, and we'll probably ask the question: is this offensive line good?